When a child is born, typically there are 3 questions that are asked. Is it a boy or a girl? What's their name? Are they healthy? Parents often agonize over their children's names. They worry that this name will cause the child to be teased, or that this name may offend their spouse's family, or that this one is too girly, or that one is too boyish. And it is not uncommon for parents to run through hundreds of names right up against the birthing deadline before they land on that perfect name. And as to the baby's health, there are a myriad of devices, machines, levels of expertise, doctors, and money that monitor every part of the newborn's body, both in the womb and out. But in determining if the baby is a boy or a girl, the method is tried and true. We look at them naked, and we check the box, male or female, blue or pink, brother or sister, son or daughter. Whether through a sonogram or in the flesh, a decision is made with a glance and a stroke of a pen. For hundreds of years, regardless the advances in technology, regardless our understanding of the complexity of gender and sexuality, regardless of the ambiguity that those genitals can sometimes display, for hundreds of years now, we have looked at them and made a decision. A little over 125 years ago, that one glance could determine if you had the right to own property. 100 years ago, that glance told you whether you were going to have the right to vote. 50 years ago, that one glance told you whether you were going to be allowed to open a credit or bank account, and 10 years ago, that glance told you who you could illegally love. Today, that glance may very well tell you whether you're going to have the right to bodily autonomy. That one look often informs a child's name. That look often informs whether the baby is going to be considered healthy. Around 36,000 children every year are born healthy and intersex with external genitals that do not match the expected norms of boy or girl. And for years, doctors have been performing unnecessary surgeries on otherwise healthy infants to correct their genitals so that the child can grow up quote-unquote normal. Intersex folks have been fighting against these unnecessary and irreversible surgeries in a milieu of people willing to ignore the violation of bodily autonomy, while at the same time fretting about reversible, gender-affirming care for youth who enthusiastically consent to it. And that is because that none of this is about protecting youth. It's about controlling our bodies and forcing these bodies into specific forms. Now, sometimes you may hear people say that there are 2 sexes. It's boy and girl. There's no changing that. It's basic middle school biology. Well, biology has come a long way since we were in middle school. Chromosomally, scientists know that it is way more complicated than the simple XX or XY that we were taught in middle school. Most of us will never actually know our exact chromosomal makeup, but it may include a lot more X's or a lot more Y's than you might think. Chemically, we know that hormones like estrogen and testosterone determine a great deal more about our bodies than the genitals do, and that all of us will have hormone level changes in our lifetime. We even know that with different levels of hormones, the structures of our brains change, regardless of that designation at birth. Yet even with all of that knowledge, today, a baby is born, we take a peek under the clothes, we label them boy or girl. And there is a reason that there is not more machinery and science and specialists involved in this determination. It's because it's not a scientific or medical determination, but a social one. There is no science that says that people born with a vulva love the color pink, have names like Flowers or Mary or Nicole. There is no science that says that people born with a penis like the color blue and want to be action heroes. Our society takes a look at someone's genitals, assigns them a sex, and then there are a million ways that society polices that sex and tries to enforce that it is natural and it's a biological distinction, no different from how trees grow or stars are born. It's a law of nature. Now, there are so many places in our world that are gendered that make no sense outside of a context of gender policing. Here are some examples of gendered products that I have found over the years. There are men razors and women razors, men earplugs and women earplugs. There are batteries, and I'm saying literally AA batteries, that are advertised for boys and for girls. Girls get deodorant that smells of lavender. Boys get deodorant that smells like Blue Mountain Blast, whatever that is. And when often cisgender men feel the need to break out of the traditional performance of their gender, we have invented a whole array of new words to make them feel okay doing unmanly things. Men manscape, they don't wax. Straight men have bromances when they have a very close relationship with another man. Men have a man purse or a merce when they choose to carry a purse. And all of these products and portmanteaus, they're very funny, and they're a part of a larger system that reinforces gender performance and expectations. Now, every trans person I've ever met has a million such examples of the way that the world has unnecessarily sorted us into gender categories. Every trans person has a story before they were transitioning, or as the term goes, before their egg was cracked, where someone gendered them in the way that felt right. For instance, I remember going out shopping with my aunt and a store clerk asking us ladies if we needed any help. And I remember the feeling of surprise and overwhelming joy when that happened. And then also the terrible fear that maybe somebody noticed that joy. Trans folks know the prevalence of the gendered world because for our whole lives there was this roller coaster ride of emotions and spaces that people seemed to navigate without the joy and fear that we felt. So very many trans people will tell you the ways that they rationalize these feelings for years. The amount of, well, it's normal for guys to dream about being a woman, or it's normal for girls to want to be a man. Trans people know the prevalence of gendered spaces because when we are miscategorized, at best it feels uncomfortable, and at worst, it is deadly. And all of this starts with someone looking at our genitals. Thus, it is no surprise that so often our society focuses on those when talking about gender-affirming care. But gender-affirming care is a complex social surgery cutting us out of the lashings and handcuffs of the gendered forms and transplanting us into a new social category. And it doesn't have to be. Everyone here receives some form of gender affirmation every day. Gender affirmation is getting a manicure with your girlfriends. It's getting a fresh haircut at the barber. It's being called aunt or uncle, nibbling or mix, spouse or wife. Gender-affirming care is getting medication to deal with the creeping baldness that comes with age. Gender affirmation is obtaining birth control. It's getting Viagra. Gender affirmation is being called a name that feels most you. You're going to hear a lot about trans people's rights in the coming months and years. Often, you won't hear from trans people. We're rarely quoted in these. But I want to be clear. Trans people's agenda, our right, is to live full, healthy, visible, public lives, just like everyone else. Don't let anyone scare you into thinking that our right to that somehow infringes on anyone else's right to have the same. Why police gender? Why is this issue so central? I think it's because if you can change what gender you were assigned at birth, how can they possibly legislate reproductive health care? If we can change our sex assigned at birth, how can they define who we are allowed to love, what our families are allowed to look like? If you can change that designation, then who can be conscripted to fight wars and who can be excluded from the workforce? The porosity and complexity of gender threatens the misogynistic and homophobic powers that want to take away our bodily autonomy. It starts with trans people, but as we have seen, it does not end with us. Trans people's lives and bodies are testing grounds for limiting the rights of all people. The laws being used to target trans people healthcare is the same template for the laws being used to limit people's access to reproductive health care. The state's intervention in our right to make medical decisions with our doctor is the same template used for forced birth and the subjugation of our bodies to what is quote-unquote normal and natural. The policing of gender is fundamentally a practice of misogyny and white supremacy. It is a narrative that says that there is a natural order, a hierarchy of people and bodies. It is a narrative that says we can look at your genitals, we can look at your skin, we can look at your body and tell you what rights you will have from the very first day you're born. Today, right now, trans people in general and trans people of color in particular are bearing the weight of hatred and fascism that threatens to press down on all of us. Our struggle is not just an issue of a small minority of people struggling, but the opening salvo of a war to control our bodies and our families. We cannot turn our backs on our trans siblings, not just out of the kindness of our hearts or out of our inherent sense of justice, but because these are but the front line in a fight that is at our doorstep. We're going to read names today of our trans siblings that we have lost to senseless violence. The list is incomplete. There really is no accurate count. The list does not include the many who have died from self-harm or who are not visible to the world as trans. And we say these names not only because it is important to name and mourn those we have lost. We say these names because each one of them fought against their own internalized transphobia, against the untold legions of social norms and forces trying to tell them they are wrong. We say these names because each of them was on the front of fighting for our rights. We say their names because they fought so very hard for that name, for that small slice of humanity that says that I have a right to name myself, to be called what feels good and right to me, the right to say that just because I was naked on the day I was born, no one gets to tell me who I am, what I deserve, and what I'm called. We say their names so that we don't forget that we have a stake in the fight. We say their names so that we can practice using our voices to say, not in my name. Friends, it's not uncommon in the trans community to hear pleas for help in one place or another. Here, a person being forcibly removed from life-saving medicine, there, a child being kicked out of their home. And I am never more proud to call myself a UU than when I see on those message boards people who are not even UUs saying, have you tried to seek refuge with the UU church out there? Have you reached out to Pink Haven? The UUs will help you. At a time when I feel like I'm losing my faith in my country, in my neighbors, I remember these messages. People knowing that we are here. People knowing that we loudly and defiantly choose kindness. We need to prepare our attention in the weeks and months to come. We need to stay laser focused on kindness. We need to make sure that we live up to the hope that so many people have invested in us. Rita Dove in our reading today said, "Never is the word of last resort. Always the fanatic's rallying cry. To those inclined toward kindness, I say, come out of your houses drumming. All others beware. I have discarded my smile, but not my teeth." Let our faith go out into the streets drumming. Let us rally behind the cry of always. We will always be a haven. Your body is always your choice. Your name is always sacred. And let us say it with our teeth bared, even if we have lost our smiles. May it be so.